All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much again for joining us again on this week's September 27th, 2023. Our topic of discussion and our topic for concern is stopping the violence in America. We've had several speakers over the 50-odd or 60th weeks from law enforcement, pastors, advocates, and a whole plethora of all those who are out there in the struggle, if you will, out there in the field, working in the ways that they have to deal with the problem of violence in America. We've had so many extraordinary persons on, but today I have another special guest, and he's even more special to me because we've had a press conference about a couple of days ago, 4 days ago or so, where the topic again was stopping the violence and targeting the Southeast community of Washington, D.C. But it was an extraordinary press conference, and our guest today, which is Dairel Muhammad, was the guest speaker. Actually, he was the premier speaker. We had various pastors come up and share their hopes and strengths and their angles on how we can begin to deal with the violent crimes that are plaguing not only America, but specifically plaguing the Southeast community of Washington, D.C. However, this brother has an extraordinary story, as God always puts extraordinary people with extraordinary experiences to come out and share those experiences that become a catalyst for the change of the community and many other people. Dairel Muhammad, topic today is halting crime and restoring humanity. And that's where his heart is. But let me just tell you a little bit about him. Dairel Muhammad, during a 23-year prison sentence. He was able to transform his life and positively impact, if you will, the lives of inmates and prison staff across the Federal Bureau of Prisons throughout the United States. After being sentenced to 35 years to life without parole sentence, he was forced to face the negative history of his background, changed by his thinking and actions to reemerged, rehabilitated, and a voice of the incarcerated throughout the country. Now, he is presently, and I don't want to read all of his bio because I know in that bio is his story. But now he's presently working with the Umbrella Therapeutic Services, Community Support Workers for the Court Services and Offenders Supervision Agency. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome my brother. How are you? Good to see you. We had a great press conference. It made the newspaper, it made the news, but we really want to hear your hopes and strengths today and how God has been using you through your experience to be a catalyst for the changes that are so needed within our communities. Welcome, brother.
Welcome, Brother Oliver. It's a blessing for me for having, again, the opportunity to explain not only my personal story, but the work that I have been blessed to do. And you're absolutely right. I had 35 to life with no parole. I was in 12 penitentiaries in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And I was able, while I was in those 12 penitentiaries, unite Black, white, red, brown, and yellow, whether they was Ku Klux Klan skinheads, whether they was Bloods, Crips, Serranos, Nathaniels. It really didn't make too much of a difference with me because the central figure for me to uniting all of us was Christ Jesus. It caught the attention of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, psychologists, as well as wardens, how I was able to get all of us in a room weekly and focus on our rehabilitation transformation. to make sure that we was making those penitentiaries a decent and safe place to live. I came home a couple of years ago, actually 2020 in October, and I hit the ground running based on my experience of educating myself. I came home with 3 college degrees, American Studies, business degree, as well as a social and behavior science. So the beautiful thing for me is having the experience of dealing with the human family. And of course, the press conference came about by our illustrious, legendary Bishop Stallings, who last week was watching the news, and he was so taken aback and appalled by Ward 8, in which he lived and been a big part of for the last 47 years, is the worst ward in Washington, D.C. when it comes to gun violence and murder. So the work that I have been doing prior to that is immaculate, because I go in these neighborhoods and deal with these guys that the police can't deal with. One reason that they cannot deal with it, they are outgunned. These young guys all throughout the country, particularly Washington, D.C., they have assault rifles. So I'm one of the only men that they're allowing in all the high schools to deal with our young people. I teach the high intensity for CSOSA, the D.C. parole board or system or agency, that they don't send them guys back to jail. I also work directly with MOCA director Lamont Curry in terms of providing resources to our people. I work day and night, crisscrossing Washington, D.C. I spend $300 worth of gas each week going into these neighborhoods, explaining to the guys out of my experience of transforming my life that there's 2 things going to transpire. Either you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life, or you're going to end up a victim, and your family have to pay the price. So Reverend Starling, or Bishop Stallings, was troubled by what he see in the ward that he's been living in. So he asked me, what could I do? I have an infrastructure in this city based on the work that I have been doing in our communities for the last 3 years. We put together a plan expeditiously and had a news conference. And that news conference came about because I have a company called Crisis Management Unit. And that's what he had mentioned at that news conference, because we're in a crisis in Washington, D.C. So the work that I have been doing, he knows. So he asked me, okay, you have the infrastructure in this city. And the beautiful thing for me is I independently do it myself. I don't rely on any government funding. If I have to come out of my own pocket, that's one thing for me, because I mentioned in that news conference that what I see in terms of Washington, D.C., the reason that we're not engaging with our young people, because majority of maybe 85 to 90% is motivated by money. So I see us hustling the death of our people, because I deal with the politician. Everybody pulled in one way or another, but I have to stay independent, because at the end of the day, I am the one in the streets providing resources to our young people and establish a relationship with our young people. So what the clergy did, Bishop Starling brought the Catholic Church and the Baptist Church together with my company called Crisis Management Unit. And right after this news conference, we put together a plan where I will lead personally the church out in the street. And the beautiful thing about our pastor and our Bishop Stallings, he had to admit that the church haven't been involved in terms of their community and relationships with our young people. So we have a no opposition day, October the 14th, where Anacostia High School has already joined and asked for 2 students from each high school, Anacostia High School and Blue High School, to give me 2 students to speak on their experience of living under the threat of death every day. I have some local rappers that's conscious, that's I know been trying to do all that they can to squash the beef amongst our young people. So this is a young person's program. And we as elders need to support our young people. And one of the things that I know that is a problem, you can't go to them with your own precepts and concepts. And some of us have a problem with listening to them because if you listen long enough with a discerning ear, you will listen closely and find out what the problem is, then come with the solution. So many of us have it backwards. We think that we have the solution to the problem. And this is why the church is coming out to help establish a relationship with them people, because it's more than, as Bishop Starling says, preaching to an empty church. It's more than Minister Kadir, Minister Farrakhan, regional minister, said. It's more than going to the mosque. The mosque has to come out in the street and engage. The church has to come out and engage with our young people. So it's a plethora of things, or a cocktail of community organizations that needs to come out, because I can tell you firsthand, the people is not going to those buildings. The resources is here, but the people is just not going to those buildings.
And listening to you and being with you, I know for a fact you are committed, you are diligent, and you're determined to the very end to see what we call a sustainable and measurable change in our community. And you're right, the kids are not coming to the building. It's time for the building to come out to the kids.
Absolutely.
And I always, when you said that, that always brings me, many people know, but I'll say it myself. Again, you know, my father was in the same business as social worker and dealing with the community. And during the Million Man March, they had asked him to come to, you know, give a synopsis of what he thought, a review of the Million Man March back, if you remember back in those days. And he did, he went to the church, he spoke. And what I heard, and he had shared this with me and my mom, but also the last words he said before he walked out, came home, changed his clothes, and went to the store. And as he was buying the newspaper, he just fell back and he passed away instantly. But the last words they said that he said was in conjunction in what you just said, or in synergy of what you said. He said, if the church, with all its powerful spirit that it houses in those four walls, will only take it with the same magnitude that you have it in the church out to the communities, right on your corners, you would have solved God's problem a long time ago. So that really, what you just said really brought that picture back, that particular statement that my dad made, and it's so true. It's time for us to go out there, and we've had other speakers on to share that. But one of the things I want to open up, you know, I like for you to share with us that I know in your bio you said that you were in solitary confinement for 15 years, and that was where a turnaround came, a rebirth in your life came into existence, and that's what is your motivating force. Could you explain to us what was that? What happened? What was that transformation like for you?
Okay, first and foremost, I explained the influence that I had inside those federal bureau of prisons. And the Federal Bureau of Prisons, in its inception, have never seen one man able to unite, as they said, those that was irredeemable, irretrievable, and irreconcilable. They just never seen no one able to do it. So I was a case study for them because they never seen it done, even though I was in the general population. Now, likewise, out here, the thing for them was calling me to the custody, meaning the lieutenant office, right? I was being monitored to the whole 23 years from the Justice Department, where I was at and what I was doing every 2 years, because I was a threat to their security. So I refused to go to the lieutenant office. Why? Because if anybody had anything to say to me, it should have been the chapel, not custody, not the captain, and not the SIS, which is the Justice Department. So me knowing that's dangerous for me, because with that kind of influence and the manipulation that I know of the Justice Department, if something transpired deadly, even though they loved the work that I was doing in the institution, if something went to the negative, they could always say, okay, the real Muhammad had the power to do it, or he had the power to stop it. So because I refused to go to the lieutenant office and me knowing the reality in which I was living, they say, okay, well, lock him down. And I was sent to solitary confinement, meaning that I was in a cell 23 hours a day, every day. Inside solitary confinement, it's no doubt about it, they had to monitor me because I wouldn't go. The 1 hour rec every day, I wouldn't go out anyway. So my transformation, truthfully speaking, didn't come from me going to jail, because the man that testified against me gave me 3 affidavits over the protracted period of 23 years saying that he made a deal with the government and he didn't see me commit the crime. That was part of the reason, or 90% of the reason of me coming back home. So I was still litigating on my own, and I was blessed because I was helping other people as well as helping myself, because the first law of nature is self-preservation. Now to move it forward, you can't fix what you won't face. And this is what I explain to the young people in this community. Not only here, I travels abroad. I'm nationally. Former President Barack Obama, Secretary of Education Ori Duncan has been down here with me in DC several times. He invited me up to Chicago to deal with the GDs and vice lords and Latin kings, because all of those guys, Laurie Hoover co-defendants, was with me at the old penitentiary in Torrey Hut and the new penitentiary in Torrey Hut. So they was already, I established a relationship with all 50 states of those brothers anyway in the penitentiaries, and have had to govern all of us to make sure that we made those penitentiaries a decent and safe place to live. And one of the most notorious penitentiaries now that I opened up back then in 2003 was Big Sandy in Kentucky. And that's where it really started in terms of the influence, because they sent me from Lee County Penitentiary to Big Sandy. When I got there, there was 37 people in the compound. And the 3 years that I was there, the mayhem, the assaults, and the murder was down so dramatically that it allowed the warden of that institution to say, okay, we need to keep an eye on this man. And once again, for me, not allowing myself to be drawn into the politics of prison. I'm not a shot caller for no one. I came into prison by myself. I came home by myself. But the thing for me, I know that we can be rehabilitated. I know that we can be reformed, because I was rehabilitated and I was reformed. So I've been up Philadelphia with all the murder that's up Philadelphia through several people that I knew in those penitentiaries. Next month, I'm on my way to Inglewood, Compton, and LA, because some of those brothers that was Tukey Williams homies that was in Victorville. I got stuck in Victorville Penitentiary for 6 years with Tupac's stepfather, may God bless him, Doc Shakur. So they know me personally, and I know them personally. In the whole 6 years that I was there, we kept everything at a minimum. So once again, for me, even in my transformation of my own life, I'm able to establish a relationship with these guys because I've been there. I know their thinking, I know their attitude, but more so, I know the results if they don't change their mindset.
Thank you. So I'm going to open it up. I would just, as before I open it up, some other comments were on the chat. So your rehabilitation was based on extenuating circumstances that you were facing out in the community. But the reason why you were able to zero in and become a catalyst for change is that before you left the street, you were already a conscientious man. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
As well?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. All right. So the floor is open. I see James Mooney, if you wanted to share something yourself, but I see all other people, he says Dyrell and all other people on the Zoom, I desire to work with you. So there you have it. Welcome.
Say, Daryl, I worked within the prison system for 7 years, and I was undercover for the Utah Task Force, Washington County area. And I was known to bring down more people than I've ever brought, than all the other undercover people put together. And then I found out that the laws on drugs was totally illegal. And I went berserk. I mean, and that's when I stopped. I went into the prison system, which I was already volunteering, doing sweat lodges for the Department of Corrections in Utah. And I apologized. I told the people in that prison, I helped put them there. And instead of killing me, which I was more than willing to do, to be frank with you, because I was so disgusted of what I was supporting. I just, I can't tell you how angry I was that I was actually um, part of the biggest conspiracy to deny people of the United States of their constitutional rights. I mean, I was just disgusted. And instead of killing me, they put their arms around me and said they understood. And something that most people outside of prison don't understand, inmates love straightforward talk. They are so fed up with bullshit. It is just, it reeks. And so that
Absolutely.
was a big surprise to me. And to be frank with you, one of the biggest problems that we have, and Daryl really hit it on the head, the politics in the prison system. And he knew it. And people that have been incarcerated for a good period of time understand it is so corrupt, it is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Mm.
I was hired through a lot of political stuff, maneuvering to let a Native American in Utah to run a program called the Last Shot program, which lay dormant. They had about $80,000 a year or $80,000 to support a program called the Last Shot program, which was designed to eliminate recidivism. In 18 months under that program, the people that I worked with, I dropped recidivism within 90 days. I mean, within a year and a half, I dropped recidivism to less than 30%. As I'm sitting in my office, a fellow comes in who had a program that was getting $1 million or so to do the same thing, but he wasn't getting nothing. Okay. And he asked me, he says, James, I understand you've got some numbers that were really incredible. And I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. I was just doing my job. And he says, do you have that report or something that shows the recidivism? And I said, well, yeah, here it is. And he said, holy crumb, you were working with the parole board. You kept track of everybody and the whole thing. And you dropped recidivism within 30%, less than 30%. I said, yeah, I didn't think that. I was just doing my job. I didn't think it was anything big thing. Okay. Well, then he asked me, he says, hey man, can I have this? I said, sure. So I gave it to him. He went to the Utah. Just think about this, just drives me nuts. He went to the Congress of Utah using my he's already got it, don't you, Daryl? And got another $2 million for his project, and they canceled mine. Daryl knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And they dropped mine. And within 6 months later, they fired me. And I sued them and won. But would
Yes,
they
sir.
get the job back? No. I'm telling you, Daryl, you asked me to do anything. If I possibly I can do it, baby, I'm there.
Yes, sir.
I am so freaking fed up with the corruption.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's all about freaking money. And
Yes, sir.
when I went into that program, and I mean, the politics that the good people had to get me in there, because the first thing that happened when after about a month of being in the prison system or working with the last shot program, I get called into the warden's offices, Vanderveer, and and my direct supervisor, Celeste Stinton, was sitting in their office, and they were pissed. And I said, God, what the hell did I do? And he said, James, I got 2 letters to write you, or to tell you, to show you. And the first letter was from the people, a Mormon community of people that complained to the governor. How could you hire a savage Indian to take on a prestige job where all these other good Mormons are here to be able to take the job?
Yeah. So I thank you very much. You're making some really pertinent statements. I would like to have Dyrell, if you wanted to respond to that. And we have a few other questions that people would like, but you made some pertinent statements that I think they're very powerful. And I can also respond to that because I've seen other people who have done some really incredible, on the ground, out there in the field, reduction of recidivism and lost a grant. I don't get it either. So I understand. So what you're saying, Dyrell,
Yes, sir.
do you have any response to that? And then
Of course
some
I
other
do.
people would like to.
Of course I do. You would think that the work that I have been doing, being effective and efficient, crisscrossing Washington, D.C. every day, you would think that I would get the proper funding, that I can do more in terms of hiring more people based on my expertise and what I know, right? The issue in Washington, D.C., one of them is Mayor Bowser. And this is why I refuse to take any government assistance, because she have what you call credible messengers that's not credible. She has some violent interrupters that's not interrupting any violence. These guys are getting millions of dollars, and I'm in their neighborhood and they not in the street, and she knows they's not in the street, right? So I work directly with various of her directors because they can't do what I do. I'm in the street. They work for the administration. So I know exactly, I can speak exactly to that reality. This is why I refuse to take any grant money. Not that I would refuse to take it, but I refuse to be muzzled by the corruption that's going on. I don't have no problem with speaking direct words to it. Now, DC has become so fed up with what I just said, because everybody know the game that's being played. That's why I coined the phrase financial mercenaries. See, a financial mercenary is a person who is hustling with their people, meaning they are motivated by a salary, but can't do, or refuse to do the work of coming in the street. So I live with that every day. That's not an issue for me because I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to find those that has the right motive and sincere in attempting to stop the gun violence and murder in Washington, D.C. Truth be told, all of them have to come to me one way or another. All of them. I received a telephone call today from our House of Representative beside Eleanor Holmes Norton, Dr. Oye, that wanted a few contributions from me, and he wanted me to join on with his campaign for next year, June next year. I'm not a politician, don't care too much for it. But all of them one way or another have to come my way. There's nothing in Washington, D.C. that has more influence amongst these people than myself.
Thank you, my brother, for those comments. Thank you, Mr. Mooney, for your comment. And I hope you guys do get together and work in some way in tandem together. I would like to also call out You can put it in your, I think you put it in the text, and then we can forward it to you as well. I'd like to call out my dear sister, Dr. Madeline Alexander. She has worked within the prison system as well, and I'd like to hear her comments or any questions or statements that she may have to you as well, my brother.
Greetings, 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 greetings,
Greetings,
Brother
Miss
Muhammad.
Alexander.
I commend the work that you've done and the work that you're doing with the utmost respect, because everyone's not called to the streets. My
Yes.
theory on that is, if you can help me, don't try to block me, just get out of my way.
Right.
There's other ways to support what you're actually doing. When you talk about those years, those days and those years in solitary, I worked the prison system for 13 years. I know what that looks like when a man comes out of that situation, if he is not centered on something outside of himself. So
Yeah.
again, I commend you for that.
Yeah.
You said we can't fix what we don't face.
Right.
And a lot of times we receive a lot of lip service
Yes.
to the degree where we can get those grants. But we haven't faced the real issues that people are actually experiencing every day. And they stand and hide behind the check that's going forth, and they're not doing the work. There is an accountability for that. Okay, we were raised that money is the root of all evil, but it's the
Yeah.
love of money that's the root of all evil. And when
Yes,
you
ma'am.
talk about different prisons and different institutions, they're money makers. They're
Yes.
money makers. So our community have to be enlightened
Yes.
that the trap has been set, but it's up to you to take the responsibility to
Absolutely.
not fall for the trap that have been set.
Absolutely.
So you being able to go into these communities, number one, to speak your truth. You said that you were going to explain to us, but from where I sit, brother, you
Yes.
allowed us to have an experience with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't forget about Paul and Silas. They were behind the gates, they were praying, and they were fasting. And
Yes.
God broke those arms that they would be set free. So as you continue this journey, as you can to continue the call, the gift that God has on your life, know that this sister right here, I'm praying for you, brother, that
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can continue to be able to bring all of those people together, those gangs together. Because one thing I know and understand about working in the prison system, it's us against them.
Yes. Yes.
So for you to be able to bring those people together, it was still us against them. But you were the common denominator to say, hey, we can do something different, but we have
Yes.
to have a made up mind and a changed mind.
Yes.
And now that you're out on the street and you're constantly, lending yourself to the public, to the community, that speaks volumes about who you are
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what you're called to do.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
brother, I commend you. Continue your journey. God bless you tremendously.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
That was very,
God bless.
always on point. Thank you, Dr. Alexander.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so
God
much.
bless. God bless.
Yeah, God bless you too. Yes,
I'm
the
multitasking,
floor
so
is
I'm gonna turn my camera off.
okay. Anyone else like to share, to have any questions for our dear brother Tyrell?
Yes.
The floor is open.
Okay.
O'Connor.
Can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you.
Okay. What I would like to do, because I'm getting a lot of responses in the chat, which is a blessing for me. I'd like to, before I answer, give my telephone number to the guests, that they can call me whenever they need to, that I can assist them however I can, because I'm quite sure that all of us is not in the same area. And I do a lot of traveling. So whatever I can do to assist anyone wherever they're at, that's just what I do. Of course, my name is Tyrell Muhammad. And my telephone number is 202-274-0441. Let me slow it
Yeah,
down.
we can put that in, we can put it
Yes.
in the chat.
One of the things that she said, a lot of us, the doctor, one of the things that she said that is no doubt about it caught my attention. And this is what I talk to our Christian brothers and our Muslim brothers about. This is a dire situation that we are in. Anytime you see our young people with no remorse, no consciousness, taking the life of another human being that they didn't create. And that's heavy when you out here and you see it, the death, the stench, the attitude, and the end result of the mothers being pained by the death of their loved ones. And when I have conversations, even with the church, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. You saying you've been saved. But I know if you've been saved, then you can save. You see.
Yes.
So the blessing for me is, as a Muslim, I do a lot of speaking on television. And Mr. Carl Nelson, who has a syndicate show 6 months ago, he said, wait a minute, as a Muslim, you always talk about the Bible. And I mentioned to him, I said, well, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the Muslim outside of the theology and ideology. But I remember mentioning him to Jesus is universal. He is the Christ. He is the deliverer. He is the redeemer. He is the savior. And I was blessed to learn that Bible in my studies spiritually. And that's what united all of us in those federal bureau prisons. The central figure that I used was the Bible to unite each one of us. And one of the things out of the Bible that I used to use was Paul's experience coming out of Acts chapter 9, where Paul physically never seen Jesus, but as the doctor said, he had an experience. And that's what we have to explain to our people, the experience. I had an experience. So I explained my experience to them like Paul. Paul wrote 12 or 13 chapters in the Bible. So Paul was a murderer, Brother Oliver.
So
He was a rehabilitated, transformed, reformed murderer of Christians, let me say that. And we wouldn't know who Jesus the Christ is if it wasn't for Paul.
Amen.
See? So I used to have to explain that to a chapel of 800-900 men, including the warden's administration, who would line up and listen. How is he able to do it? But I used to speak directly to them, how they viewed us, since the doctor, what she knew out of experience, they look at it as us against them. They don't see the humanity in a man that made a mistake or an error in his life. They didn't look at it like that. They look at him or us at that time as criminals that couldn't be reformed. So right in their midst was a man that was doing it at that time with no degree. So the thing for me is what I want to say to the sister that, I've been saying recently, a man that says that it could not be done should not interrupt the man that is doing it.
That's right. That's right.
If you don't think that it can be done, then get the hell out of my way.
Hey, hey,
In that order.
Hey, come on, brother. I'm with you. I'm with you when you're right. Yes,
because
Lord. Get
the
out of the way.
because the solution has to come from us, to us, for us. No one is coming to save us. We all that we have.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you're correct. It's interesting, the most prolific, I always say the most prolific writer that can interpret Jesus's words his mission and what those words really mean to our personal lives was Paul, and he wasn't even there. You know, he was a murderer. He was that, but it's interesting how God will use that to make a very profound. So we want to thank you. Leslie, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, you read my mind. Yeah, I'm really, really inspired, not just by Jarrell Muhammad, but also by James Mooney, and how you persevered through so much resistance and corruption. And I heard recently that there's a new bill that our Congressman Stephen Hosford is putting up to get money to deal with the violence in the community. It's Bill 4118. And then, okay, there's more money, and that means there's more corruption.
Right.
So my question is, what can be done about the corruption? Can you bring it to the Congress to deal with it, since they hold the money? How do you deal with that? That's so disheartening, incredibly disheartening. So yes, yeah, that's my question. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I got a real investment in this. I think as Daryl and I and other people have experienced, it's the corruption is the problem.
Yeah.
And so a solution to any problem is facing what the problem is, which is
Right.
and Daryl has accomplished gone through the corruption, just ignoring him, just saying, I don't give a damn about your money. I'm going to be doing what I'm doing, but I'm sure in the hell not going to be tainted because of your money. Somehow the answer and the solution is to turn around and start getting clean money where they're only
Right.
looking for the end objective of what the purpose is. And instead of having putting yourself in a position where they're making more money, okay, show them that by having the real solution is actually more beneficial financially in every other way if we're doing the real job without the corruption. I don't know the full answer, but I believe because everything is becoming so clear of the corruption, I think we're on their way. I think something has
Yeah,
happened where
thank you.
solution. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Tyrell, what
Well, one of
do
the
you say?
one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm on petition and request the assistance from the private sector. I left in 1998. I came home in 2020. This is a whole totally different Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is 62 square miles. This is a whole nother Washington, D.C. In terms of the development, the developers, they buildings up, buildings down, buildings up. And one of the things that I learned how to do inside that Federal Bureau of Prisons that I mentioned, that of course you have to know all the things that they would try to offer me to stop me from doing what I was doing, right?
Mm.
And for me, my strength is representing the people properly. That's my strength. I just don't want it, because at the end of the day, I have to be free to say what I need to say. And that's where my strength comes from. So me and Bishop Stallings, we have to raise $25,000 real fast, because I've been caught the tensions of the DMV, Maryland and Virginia. And I usually have to sit back and strategize my next move, because I know when you're doing this kind of work, what kind of oppositions that's coming. So you have to be very strategic in how you move in these cities like this. And I finally reared my head, but it's too late for them because I'm here now. So I got the whole clergy in Washington, D.C. behind me, yes, doing the work, but now I'm really calling on the private sector for us to provide the resources, because I already work directly with Mayor Bowser, Director Lamar Curry. So some resources is there, but for now, more resources have to be given to do a greater work. It's just like inhaling more air into your lungs, which produce more power.
Mhm.
So for me, is I have a strategy after this program to go to the private sector to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm in your neighborhood, and you have uh, an investment in your development, and I'm going to tell them I'm not going to mince no words. Those big pretty buildings that you're building, if we don't rehabilitate, transform the people, then out of their savage behavior, then your big pretty building will be no more.
Mhm.
So you have an
At
investment with
risk.
me in maintaining and helping me rehabilitate and transform these people in your neighborhood. I'm in Martin Luther King Avenue right now, 1 block from C. Sosa Parole Agency, as well as Merrill Bowser, Director Lamont Curry's office. I usually take the people in their offices to get the resources, but it's just not enough because there's a job problem here. There's a housing problem here. Of course, there's a mental health problem here, and there's a drug addiction problem here. And if we look for the government, who is the problem, to fund our solution, then I can guarantee you that's going to never happen.
Thank you very much for that. That's really profound, and it's true. The question, Leslie, I think we have to, and I think that's the right direction. Anybody want to say anything else? I think that's the right direction, Tyrell, that you are taking to go to, in some respects, going to the developers, and as you know, the people who don't know DC, what you see in DC is it's a phenomenon, right? It's like what DC used to look like and what it looks like today. You can't even believe it.
Yes,
But
sir.
it's true that we become an advocate. We become like when I told you I used to work with the opportunity zones. That was private money given to the stakeholders in the community as they were coming in these communities, and we could use that money, that type of money, in order to create those sustainable projects and programs that will significantly reduce the crime, because you're working on the behaviors, and we're working on all the necessary tools that are needed that are not really there because of funding to help reduce the crime and all those things that are root cause of criminal behaviors within those communities. So it's true. Sometimes I wonder, do they really want to see change? If you, in do we really want to see, do they want to see change? Because that's a lot of money, that $1 million that millions of dollars that Mr. Mooney was talking about. That's a significant number that can go to significant programs, putting you and Mr. Mooney and those two people ahead of it, and then we can see some really significant results from that. So anybody else, anybody have any other questions or statements to make as we coming in?
I have something that I think will add to this discussion.
Sure.
Challenge Daryl about getting private money and going and doing something, which I've already faced. You can go ahead. I've offered to present my programs, and there was the lieutenant governor even wants it. But she can't get the people, the corruption, to even accept the work to bring it in. This has to be solved politically, which drives me nuts, but that's what it's got to be done, because even the solution is there. They won't accept it because they're not making any money.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I got to say. And I think there's people in here in this forum that probably have an answer to it, because I'm not the answer. Because I tell you, I go up with any type of corruption, I go freaking berserk, and I don't hold it back. And that's not a good political way of doing things. But there's some way with this group of people there's an answer. I guarantee you, I feel it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else would like to share? Open up and share a few words before we come to our close. Do you have anybody have any? I think I'd like to go back to Leslie's question. Then what would be the avenue to deal with the internal corruption that has been stated by Mr. Mooney and also Dyrell? A hard statement, question. You want to say something, Nadia?
Yes. How could you tell? I think that in anything, to find out what's really, really going on, people need to research. They can't just guess what's going on. People need to want to find out what's going on, and hopefully there's at least one person in, all this mess that, is prepared to actually do the research, find out what's going on, figure out with people that are able to actually clean things up. I mean, it takes a lot, it's a huge problem. It's in everything. This is really horrible because it's affecting people's lives directly, which is, I'd hate to be the people that are doing the wrong things, because they're gonna be surprised. You got to account for your mistakes. So anyway, God bless you. We're praying for you. If we can help, we're there, like-minded people, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Nadia. I think you can't beat a system or bring a system to the wall or to justice without proper data and proper research, as she said, and statistics that can show logistically this has been happening, that becomes the if you wanted the thorn in the shoe that they have to begin to look at and bend down and take that thorn out. So I think like Nadia said, you need to do more statistical research on these ill results due to corruption, and if it's a certain pattern, then that pattern will be able to be seen. So I appreciate that statement, Nadia, because I think that's one of the ways to do it as well. Do some research and look at it and bring it forthcoming, because research and data doesn't tell a lie. It's there, it's factual. Anyone else like to share?
Reverend Oliver, when you think about it on those lines, the powers that be, they know that this is an epidemic. It's not an isolated situation in Washington, D.C. It has gone from state to state, every major city, even the small towns. So the question remains, do they want to fix the problem? Brother Muhammad made it very clear. You can't fix what you won't face. Are they denying the truth because it haven't impounded their areas yet? We've had that conversation before with other guests. You know what I mean? So to have the solution, naturally, it's going to take the like-minded people to come together, yes, and to do the research. But even in that, when we talk about dollars and cents, people are very selective of where it goes. Remember the young man that was a principal in the school, and he was working with the kids and had them being respectful and moving forward? They fired him. So those are the things that we have to look at as well. as far as the power that be, do we remove them from the strategic plan and work well within our communities and within our means? And how do we get that one out of the 10 to come on board and really be ready to face the situation and fix the situation, to go through that process?
Thank you. Thank you. Very profound. You're correct. So as we're coming to the close, Brother Tyrell Muhammad, it's a great pleasure that you're here. We want to look forward to seeing you again. And of course, want to engage with you a little bit more because we're both here in Washington, D.C., and there's so many things that we can do. And you're correct. This audience is a national audience.
Yes.
So therefore, you know, your tentacles can go out on you know, just across the country, just through the people who are on this man. So as we close, I want to thank everyone. And Mr. Mooney, thank you for your, you share always, Madeline, Dr. Madeline, always, you know, you bring it home, Nadia, everyone who were able to share, and Leslie, everyone who's ever to share. Thank you so much for coming in. As you know, that we probably have a live audience out there on YouTube that are listening as well, but probably have some questions as well, but they've been listening intently as well. So I would like to say, Tyrell Muhammad, as we are in our close, why don't you give us some closing remarks?
This is the key for me, and I explain to everybody. Just keep your duty and responsibility to the community that you are in, because at the end of the day, once you know that you're responsible, and in the word responsible, you have the ability to respond. So when you say the ability to respond and maximize whatever you can do, because oftentimes you are the light that the people have been looking for.
Amazing. And in my closing remarks, to me, when I listen to you, it's like the reverse. It looks like he's been in prison for 3 years because he's been out to 20 and been out in the field for 15 years.
Amen.
You sound like,
Way to go, Reverend Alder.
you're just amazing.
Good shot.
Listen to you. It's hard for me to calibrate that you've been there 15 years.
Yeah.
But thank you, my brother. You are incredible. As everyone has said, God has placed anointing on you, and you're just being obedient. And God bless you for being obedient and
Thank
being
you, sir.
determined and diligent. Yes, sir. Yeah,
One
God
last
bless you.
thing,
Yes, sir.
for everyone, just continue to stay blessed and safe.
Hey,
Praise
thank
God.
you.
God
Yes,
bless
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
God bless you.
Wonderful
All
to see
right.
you all.
Thank you again.
Okay.
We will talk. Thank you, everyone,
Okay,
for coming
thank
on.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Amen.
Reverend.
God bless. Have a safe
Thank
week,
you.
everyone.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right.
Reverend
Peace and
Alder,
blessings.
God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see you,
you.
Reverend
Thank
Oliver.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
God bless. Good to
Good
see you
work.
all. You've
Yeah.
been missed.
Okay.
All right.
Definitely
Take care,
Great.
everyone. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Bye-bye.
God bless.